So I am one of those who keeps my gel press in its original package in between the plastic sheets. And I think that helps keep it organized. So I'm taking it out and just putting it on a brown paper surface before I get started. Nothing fancy. I absolutely love this product, Liquid Gloves. It is wonderful for keeping the paint from sticking to your hands permanently. This is my preferred paper today. Mixed media is a little bit thinner. And some new stencils I got from Joggles that I can't wait to show you. I'm using some different types of acrylics. I like to mix it up with different brands. So I have a Charvin as well as a Golden, and I usually use Liquitex as my white because I just go through so much white that I'll use a really large bottle, and it doesn't matter if you're using the highest quality or medium quality. I see gel press painters use all sorts. I love iridescent pearl. Anything with a little added shine can really make your prints go bling. All right, so here I am using my brayer to roll out the paint and swirling it around a little bit so that you don't get the shadow from the paint drop that you put down onto the paper. So satisfying rolling out paint. I could watch this all day long. All right, so next I'm going to take my mixed media paper. I typically will tear out the amount of sheets that I want to use in one setting all at once. So for this one, I did 6 at a time, so they are ready to go off to my left. And that speedball press is super handy in smoothing out the paper. Oops, I forgot to show you my first print. Don't worry, you'll see it soon. I'll go ahead and make 6 backgrounds all in a row because then when it's time to use the stencil, I'm batching. And the whole purpose of today's project is to make a set of Easter cards for my family and friends. And so if I know I'm going to be making more than one greeting card, I might as well go ahead and get those backgrounds ready to go and print multiples. So that's why you see me doing lots of backgrounds all at once. And so smoothing it out with the press makes sure that I get all that yummy paint on the paper. There you go, a nice pink pastel background. So of course we're gonna go speed it up a little bit so that you can watch how I go through that process. But batching is a big key to my success when making multiple things. So now I'm picking out my colors for the second layer. They're not drastically different. I'm adding a little bit of brown, light brown, and gold, and I'll continue to use that pink that I was using on the first layer. But I'm mixing it in with something different this time, so you will get a different effect, but it's not going to be muddy or drastically different. It'll be a subtle effect for a nice Easter card background. So again, smoothing it out, having some fun with it. You can see the colors do blend together a little bit. All right, so now I'm going to place that stencil down and take one of my printed backgrounds and just layer it on top. What is so wonderful about printing with stencils is you get 2 prints out of one single effort. So I'm going to peel this print, just double checking to make sure I got all the paint. And boom, there is a beautiful print. But I'm not done. I can take that stencil off and it's going to reveal a great paint pattern that I can then put on yet another piece of paper. I call this a twofer. And so I'll smooth it out and you'll see the difference between the 2 prints. They're both lovely. I don't have a preference over which one I like better because I think they both work. Voila, beautiful. So now we'll speed it up a little bit again so that you can see me go through this process with multiple prints. And again, the goal here is to make enough so that when it's time for me to turn them into greeting cards, I have plenty of different backgrounds to choose from. I play around a little bit with where I situate the colors on the gel press. So sometimes I'll spread them out all over, and sometimes I'll do more of a gradient effect or ombre, I guess you could call it. But it's really up to you what you want to do. Just have fun and do what you think is visually appealing. There's really no rules. And in a later video, I'll show you what to do if you make a print you don't like. But luckily, I loved all of these prints this time. So next I got a wild hair to play with some mica flake, gold mica flake. This is the small, which as you'll see when I put it out on the plate, it is quite large compared to the coarse features that you get from a more iridescent golden paint. And so I'd really never played with it before, but I thought, well, now is as good of a time as any. So I took my palette knife and spread it out. I knew I didn't want it to cover the whole page, and I didn't really know what this white stuff was going to do. Was it going to dry clear? What was going to happen? So I figure, okay, let's just play and have some fun. And so I spread it out for the middle portion of the gel press. And then what I did was I took that same stencil and thought, all right, well, let's see if we can get an effect on one of these prints by layering it on top of what we've already pressed. So there's one of the beautiful prints, and now we're gonna press it down and see what happens when we lift it up and that mica shows up. Oh my gosh. Okay, so it's very glittery up close. It looks like sand from far away, and I have to be honest, I didn't really love it. But there was still a lot of it down, and I'm all about using up that product. I guess if I really wanted to, I could have taken a baby wipe and cleaned it off, but that was, that to me was not the plan. So we're going to take another one of the prints that I've made and pick up more of the gold mica. You can see the difference there. So where it picked up, it's a little bit scattered throughout the page. Okay, I'm liking it a little bit better. You can see that sparkle. There is still more mica left on the plate. So I'm taking my press, and you can see that one has a little bit less there. So one of my favorite things to do ever is to take my gel press prints and cut them down. I love to trim off the edges and make them into beautiful art. And so I'm still not quite sold on the mica there, but spoiler alert, when I turn them into greeting cards, I'm really happy with how it turned out. So let's do it. Let's make some greeting cards. So you see I have my cutting board out here, and I went ahead and picked 5x7 cardstock that is already pre-scored. Honestly, I used to make my own cards, but more time painting, less time worrying about cutting white paper down to size. So I already had 5x7, and that's what we're gonna do. So I'm trimming down the page to, if it's a 5x7 card, I'm making this 4.75 by 6.75. And so I'm going to cut down all of the paper that I printed in this pattern, and it'll all be that size. And so I ended up having more than I needed, which is fine. I can use it for other things later. And then I'll go ahead and fold all of these cards. Okay, oftentimes I get asked, what type of adhesive do you use to make sure that your cards last in the mail? And the favorite product of mine is the Tombow Extreme, and you can see that I use it so much that I had to do a refill. The refills are really easy to put into the dispenser, and you can keep the dispensers after you've used up the refill, which is great. So love this product. And I'm going to go ahead and put the adhesive on the back of the gel print, and then I will put it on the greeting card front. And I know there may be some of you out there that are noticing that I am not using a ruler. Well, rulers are just not my jam. I guess if I have to use them, I will, but I like to eyeball it. A rule of thumb is to line it up with the seam. because I can't trim the seam. But if I, lined it up and got it off kilter a little bit on one of the sides that's open, I could just take it right over to my handy dandy cutting board and cut it down to fix it up. But I eyeball it all. Listen, my family is super happy to get greeting cards from me, and they are not worried about whether or not it is perfect. So you should not worry about that either. Just glue and have fun. Now that I have a lovely stack of greeting cards, it's time to decide what kind of look do I want them to have. And I found this really great bunny. For Easter, I thought that would be fun. That bunny just looks really happy. And I found a piece of white paper that I had cut out with a die cut. And I'll keep extras handy just so that I can eyeball it and see. So this one's by Sunny Studio, and it's the scalloped oval, and I think that's just right. So I'm going to cut out my ovals that way. But I also think that there could be some nice detail with leaves. So I find this pink fresh leafy branch, and I find another piece of gel press. Yay, repurposing more gel prints. That is really lovely, and I held the green up to the pink, and I think they look great together. This is not an exact science, people. Just eyeball what you have and see if you like it. Now there you can see it didn't cut all the way through. That's kind of common when you have acrylic, and that paper that green is printed on is probably Bristol, not mixed media, which is even thicker and harder to cut through. So you need to have some patience if you're going to do this. But the results are worth it because you're getting one-of-a-kind, beautiful artwork that you are sending in the mail to your family and friends, and they will appreciate it. And so this turned out just great. So I'm using my Big Shot to cut it out. I know that you can use a variety of different die cutting tools. I don't know. I find something enjoyable about cranking my Big Shot, and so I like to use that for these types of products. I also don't really know if I have enough space on this green piece of paper to cut out enough leaves for all of the cards that I'm making. And there is a moment there where I'm a little bit worried as I get to the end. Because I, again, just eyeballed it. I'm not all about that measuring lifestyle, but as luck had it, or as the universe wanted it to happen, I did have enough paper, which is great because that was the only scrap I had of that beautiful green print. I had turned all of the rest of it into greeting cards during another session. So you can see just carefully weeding and carefully pulling out those leaves, but they are looking absolutely beautiful. Now, time for the fun part. This handy little tool, you need to keep it away from kids, but it is a great thing to use to punch out all the little extra pieces of paper that don't fall out immediately when you do your die cutting. I find plenty of joy in doing this repetitive activity, something easy and mindless that you can do. Think about it almost as meditative. And when I'm making larger batches of greeting cards, this is a relatively small batch for me, but as I'm making larger batches of greeting cards, I'll even take these on a road trip with me and weed them in between visits or while watching TV with family. This is a common thing that I'll do on a WebEx. Nobody can see my hands, right? And so I'll be on a video call and I'll be, weeding paper from my little designs so that I can send out cards to family and friends. Super satisfying. Okay, so I am just loving how this turned out, and I played around with the leaf a little bit, but pretty instantly knew exactly where I wanted to place it. And so I can tell that it's going to look great with the pink background, and now it's time to stamp. I was so intimidated by making greeting cards before I found this most incredible stamping tool, the Misty, and it really helps you line up greeting cards so that you can make and stamp multiples. And it is a lifesaver for me. I have it in this small compact size, which is great because most of my greeting cards are going to have a smaller print on them. However, they make a really large format one too, which I have and I can show you in future videos. I'm using a Distress Ink Wild Honey. Thought it would look nice with the mica background. And here you go. So I've put my ink on the stamp, pressed it down, put a little bit of force on it, and I am happy. I'm clapping because it looks great on the first print. The Misty helps with that. Sometimes you have to go back and print more than once to get the look you're looking for. However, this was not one of those times, and that made me happy because it's an efficient way to stamp, and I love it when the results come together like that. A little magnet helps keep the item in place just in case you do have to go back and reprint anything and you don't have to completely redo it. Next up, it's time to put some adhesive on the backs of these ovals. And I use a double-sided tape, foam tape. There's multiple brands out there. This one is 3M, and you can get it at a hardware store, online, really anywhere, any craft shop. And I'm just cutting it down so that I can cover the majority of the back of each one. And again, you see me batching. I'm doing this all at once. I'm not putting it on the back of one oval, then sticking that oval to one card, and then breaking out another oval and doing it again. I like to do it all at once. It helps me get through the tasks faster and stay focused on one item at once. And now same deal when I'm pulling the tape off. So I'm pulling the backing off of all of these at the same time. And then it is super exciting when it's time to stick them down to the final cards. And I get a lot of enjoyment out of that process. All right, so now it's time to make the cards. And again, not an exact science. You'll hear me say that a lot. I have moved the leaf around to wherever I think it should go, and boom, I don't even have to use adhesive on the leaf, which makes me very happy because I'm not the best with glue. Liquid glue makes my fingers sticky and I make a mess. So if I can find a shortcut to not have to use glue on a tiny piece of die-cutted paper, that will make me very happy. And so I'm letting the double-sided tape do the work for me. And oh, I just love how the mica turned out because it looks like it's a celebration. The bunny is throwing its hands in the air like it just doesn't care. And you can see that that glittery mica is all around. And so some of my cards have that on there and some of the backgrounds don't. I didn't do it on everything because again, I wasn't sure. I was experimenting and I'm really glad I did. So it'll be fun to decide who gets the mica and who doesn't. And so sometimes I'll send 2 different versions to family members who I know visit each other. So like my mom and my sister might get different ones. And then when they visit each other, they'll see the one that they got or that the other person got. And that's fun for me. So little hacks to have fun as you are doing multiples at once. Okay, my husband made me this stamp as a Christmas gift one year, and I love it. So I get to put my brand on the back of each of my greeting cards. I test it out on my brown paper. I have just brown craft paper on my art desk right now. I switch it up from time to time, but just to make sure it's going to print, you want to have it on an even surface. You can get these stamps customized in a lot of different places. I'll have to link to the brand that I used, but I love it. I have it for my addresses too, for both my office as well as home address. And it just puts that extra finishing touch.